So welcome. I'm Lydia Wiley-Kellerman, if I have not met you, and it's my gift to be director here and to get to love and tend and listen to this place. As you're able, do feel free to put your name in the chat. It's been a real gift to sort of have this be a tradition that we gather in November to remember how wide this community is, to tell some stories and honor our history, and to recommit and celebrate the work that's before us. Last year, we celebrated the stream of the LGBTQ work that has happened here at Kirkridge for so long. And this year, we're particularly celebrating the history that goes back to the very first days of Kirkridge being dreamed into being, that had a commitment to justice, to protest, to peacemaking, to resistance, to activism, to the work of visioning and dreaming a new world into being. So I'm so grateful to invite Naomi, who is the chair of our board, to welcome us into this space and to remind us of the moment in which we stand.
Uh-oh, did I freeze? Can you all hear me?
Now we can. It did freeze for a minute.
Okay. Okay. I am frozen on my end. Okay, I'm just going to push through. Good evening, everybody. It is my joy to serve on the Kirkridge board and to gather with you all tonight. We are people who still believe in the slow, brave work of transformation. And tonight, I think, as Lydia said, is a remembering of why Kirkridge exists at all. This mountain, I'm wishing I was there. This mountain, the mountain, has always called to those who long for a different kind of power, not dominance, but depth, not spectacle, but soul. Kirkridge has always been a threshold place, a meeting place between picketing and praying, between the contemplative and the prophetic, between retreat and return. We need threshold spaces in this time. Places we can go in the meantime, between time, to get what we need so that we can come back down the mountain. And not only do the work of transforming the world, but finish becoming what Creator intends for us to be. We live in a time when exhaustion has become a virtue, it feels like, and cynicism has become a survival strategy. Kirkridge is the antidote. Kirkridge is the antidote. We are cultivating spaces of rest that don't retreat from justice. It's like we're doing justice work that is rooted in rest, in sitting at table together, in being community around the fire pit together. And so the vision that we have is not just to sustain Kirkridge, but to expand its reach as a kind of laboratory for beloved community. We want spiritual practice and social repair to belong to each other, to get all mixed together. We want silence and action to be siblings. We want those who have been pushed to the margins to be centered and cherished. Even though we live in a culture that rewards isolation, Kirkridge is actually daring to model interdependence in a time where we're being taught to be afraid of more and more things. There's more to be afraid of every day. Kirkridge is modeling for us, teaching us belonging. So may the work we do tonight and going forward ensure that future generations can come to the mountain and breathe and rest and be undone and then remade by the love that resides on that mountain. I want to end with this quick little song. It's an invitation to you and to me. It says, love prepare me to be a revolutionary, tough and tender, tried and true, and with each other we'll build another world together, me and you. We are preparing to be revolutionaries. So thank you for your commitment to Kirkridge, to the mountain, and to revolution. Passing the mic back to Lydia or maybe to Lacey. Who am I passing the mic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Naomi. So grateful for you and calling us in with song. Yeah, and I want to pass it over to Lacey, who's our program and hospitality manager, to read a poem that they've written for tonight. Lacey has found so many ways of letting poetry be a hospitality practice here at Kirkridge. And as many of you know, if you have been on the mountain this year, that when you arrive for our programs, you find a poem that has been written just for that retreat and held with prayer and given with a land offering. So really grateful for Lacey and to call us in with word and poetry.
Thanks, dear ones. Really wonderful to be with you this night. Yeah, I'll just offer this poem to continue to ground us in the revolutionary work that we are about here on this mountain. There are cracks in the pavement where forests of water flow from our hands. Let this be our work, to love what is soft and passing underground, to raise names sedimented with hearts beating still, to tend the passage of wings harboring daily bread. Let this be our work. Our hands cracked and water full of forests. Blessings, y'all.
Thanks, Lacey. As I was thinking about this evening, I was remembering back to a gathering that we had in April. We hosted an unstructured retreat for folks who needed rest and to mark the end of Trump's first 100 days in office. It didn't feel like a surprise that most of the folks who came were queer and trans and feeling the weight of those 100 days in their bodies. And Lacey and Nicola held really beautiful, tender space for prayer and silence. And we had a big fire one night where we burned executive orders and offered dreams of what we dreamed were on those pages instead. And at the end of the retreat, we gathered in a circle under the weeping cherry by the farmhouse was blooming. And Nicola and Lacey asked us, what is it that we're called to in the next 100 days? And I felt that question really deeply for Kirkridge. I had a sense that this moment does feel like a vocational moment for Kirkridge. That while we needed to keep going with everything that we had been planning, that it was also a time to really listen, to listen in a way that we could be prepared to pivot if we needed to, that if this moment called for it, that we could, to really ask, what does sanctuary look like in this moment? What do movement spaces need? What does it look like to keep one another alive right now? And I felt really clear that this is a listening time for this place. And part of that listening is always listening to community. It's listening to our children, listening to the land. But I also think we're so lucky at Kirkridge that part of our listening always gets to be listening to our history. That there are names and stories and prayers and actions that can hold us, that can summon us, that can hold us accountable and prod us. And we hear those stories and legacies and histories in this land. And so part of why we gather tonight is to tell some of those stories, to remember that history, and to know that we're not alone in this long work and hard work that we're doing in this moment. In September, we had another retreat right as the leaves were starting to turn, also at Farmhouse, that was really looking at how to hold this moment in our bodies and what work our bodies needed. And it was made clear in that moment that we don't know what's coming, that this is a moment where we really don't know what things are going to look like, but that we do know that this is likely, that this is a moment that will demand more courage of us than anything we could have imagined. How do we make our hearts ready and our spirits and our bodies ready for what is before us? I often think of the quote from civil rights historian Vincent Harding, who says, "You can't start a movement, you can only prepare for one." And that feels like the kind of moment we're in, where we are obviously doing all of the work too, but we're also in this time of holy preparation. And I think that that is a place where Kirkridge can be. And I feel like I get to witness that every day. That just sort of takes my breath away. That Kirkridge gets to be a place of hospitality where folks can slow down and listen to the land and deepen beloved community and organize and rest and dream and learn skills and pray and stretch muscles of imagination and tend to our bodies and spirits with gentleness and joy. I also, as we gathered, I wanted to just sort of call in particular ancestor in this moment, and that's Bob Rains, who was the director of Kirkridge from 1974 to 1992. And he died this past May. And I spoke at his memorial and realized how much I feel his and Cynthia's spirits still lingering on the mountain. That I see so much of their vision and courage still at work here. The relationships and invitations they made, the visions that they held are such a part of this stream that really was courageously tended by Bob and Cindy. So I just want to bring both of them, but particularly Bob as an ancestor into this moment. I was thinking too that the peacemaking history of Kirkridge is really what brought me to this place. It is such a huge part of what summoned my own vocation and pulled my body to this land. When I arrived at Kirkridge, there was still so much of the history that I didn't know, including the queer history of Kirkridge, which just feels wild to me and has just been such a huge part of changing me and is such a huge part of this place. But really, for me, it was this peacemaking stream um, that connected me with the land. And I grew up year after year being dragged to retreats as a child. And I snuck endless cups of hot chocolate and climbed on the stones and fell in love with the mountain, while all around me grown-ups were plotting actions and discerning the times. So I'm very grateful to pass the mic over to one of those who dragged me on the long car rides every year, and that's my dad, to share a little bit of the history and streams and roots that live under this place.
Thanks, Lydia, and thanks to all who are on and contributing tonight. As Naomi reminded us, Kirkridge was founded under the Logan, or what today would be a bumper sticker, picket and pray. And in a way, that's kind of a tenet of nonviolence in itself, that spirit and action, as she was suggesting, are need to be not separated, alienated, but held together as one. And though I want to talk about peacemaking in and through Kirkridge, I want to begin this kind of short reflection in Kentucky with Thomas Merton, the Trappist monk, who in 1964 hosted a retreat at his monastery, Gethsemane Abbey, on the spiritual roots of protest. And those who gathered, there, a number of them were giving talks, but the whole retreat was kind of in the vessel of the common life, the prayer life, the rhythms of the monastic community where they gathered. I want to name some of the participants in that: Philip and Daniel Berrigan, A.J. Musty, Anabaptist theologian John Howard Yoder, whose name you may know, John Grady from Ithaca, a couple of then young Catholic workers, Jim Forrest and Tom Cornell, now blessed memory. But also invited and committed initially were Bayard Rustin and Martin Luther King. They ended up in Stockholm when King received the Nobel Peace Prize. And I can only lament in imagination to think, the different ways that retreat would have been formed together if they had been present. But it's fair to say that that gathering was a seed, one of the seeds of the Catholic left in the U.S. And in that sense, a root of the draft board raids and Plowshare's actions. Another attendee at the retreat was John Oliver Nelson, the founder of Kirkridge. And while the center had already kind of claimed a vocation, I think that retreat for him was a kind of door opening. Within months, Dorothy Day was leading a retreat at Kirkridge. And in the decade that followed, and particularly it's right to name Robert Raines here, but the Berrigans, Liz McAlister, John McNeil, Virginia, Ramey Malincott, William Stringfellow, Walter Wink, Desmond and Leah Tutu, all became sort of biblical and spiritual anchors for the life and rhythm of Kirkridge. And along with that, in that whole same period, Kirkridge was home, hosting annually the Atlantic Life Community, which just in the spring celebrated their 50th anniversary as a network of communities. I first came to Kirkridge in that period, 1979, I think. There was an annual retreat, the one that Lydia's referencing, basically on anti-nuclear resistance. And it included everyone from Sane Freeze at Riverside Church to Plowshares folk. So Fellowship of Reconciliation, AFSC, Sojourners, New Call to Peacemaking, another Anabaptist front. And the task of the retreat was to discern the signs of the times, to read the moment. That was the agenda every single year. And we could be facilitated by members of our group, which was very rich, but also folks would come in, Daniel Berrigan, Rosemary and Vincent Harding, Joan Chittister, Richard Rohr, Marie Dennis, other people whose names you would know. And for me personally, um, it was a kind of vocational reading. And in a way, each of those retreats set my own personal work agenda for the year at hand. There were spin-offs from those gatherings. One was a whole project around the Columbus 500-year quincentenary. There was a Kairos USA process for trying to write a Kairos USA document, which came to be called From Kairos to Jubilee. And I think of a really specific moment when we were actually gathered at Turning Point, and a phone call came uh, uh, just outside in the hall from Baptist pastor Gustavo Parajon in Managua. This was 1984, and he was very anxious. The harbors were being mined, and people in Nicaragua felt like a U.S. military invasion was imminent. And on the phone, we were saying, well, can we help in some way? And Gustavo said, yeah, we want you to stop the invasion. And what came out of that was something called the Pledge of Resistance. I hope you know that term. Tens of thousands of people signed a promise that if an invasion was imminent, they would not only take to the streets, but engage in direct action, nonviolent civil disobedience. And it was in fact triggered at one point, and massive action happened. This was in the days before social media, and we were organized by phone trees, where the triggering group would call a set of folks who called a couple of people, all of whom called a couple of people, and outwards from there in a way to get the word out. And we know from a number of sources that, in fact, that action and the pledge, the threat of that action, did in fact hold back the Pentagon. Last year, Kirkridge ceremonially and directly signed a treaty of renewed friendship with Pennsylvania Lenape Nation, who are the perpetual stewards of the land on which we sit here. I'm going to tread a little carefully here, but this weekend, the federally recognized Lenape Nation in Oklahoma was hosted here in Stroudsburg by the Pennsylvania nation, which is not yet recognized by the state, and they're asking for help on that. But by way of the Treaty of Friendship, they were accommodated here at Kirkridge and supporting a conversation that they've been waiting and preparing and yearning for actually many, many years. And we've been praying for that gathering ourselves in these days. Well, needless to say, we have much to learn from them. The Lenape people were and are historically the peacemaking tribe of the Iroquois Confederation. They are the ones who negotiated the alliances which brought the Iroquois nation into being. And that confederation is sometimes cited as a model for the US Constitution, but I think the really decisive thing is the way in which negotiation, conflict resolution, and peacemaking vocation of the Lenape people figured into that story. Well, I just want to conclude with kind of a listing of some current work at Kirkridge. We've heard already, and we'll hear more of things that fit our topic. We're involved in white anti-racist practice groups, which are open and online, where we've been doing events of direct nonviolence training. You've heard some about the way in which retreats bear directly on peacemaking, and we're entangled through folks on this call with frontline nonviolence in LA and elsewhere, with the liturgical direct action against genocide, with Christians for Free Palestine, of which Naomi's a leader. Plus, we're now having more and more annual events like the new call to peacemaking, events like one based in the spiritual roots of protest, and next May, a second festival of radical discipleship. Anyway, I could list more, but I trust you'll hear in a little bit of this history, a kind of litany of hope, and claim with us the vocation of peacemaking, which is rooted here at Kirkridge. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dad. I was hoping at this point the plan was to introduce another beloved board member, Edgar, to speak into the moment. And I've heard from him that he has been pulled into an emergency healing circle with folks who are doing frontline resistance to ICE in LA. And so that feels like exactly the right place that he should be, and naming and holding him and all those, and also feels like exactly what our board members and would be up to, because this is the work that we're in. I want to share a couple of particular projects that have been happening. I think many of you have been following along with our project that we started around rehabbing Folly, which was a beloved place that Dan Berrigan stayed, with the real desire to fix it up and have it be a place that we could give away for free for weeks at a time to folks who are tired and who are doing the work of frontline activism in this moment and need space to rest. So I'm going to share actually a video from Frida Berrigan, who talks a little bit about sort of the vision. That this was a video we made a little bit ago, and then a short video also to show you what it looks like now, because this is a program that is now up and running and we're so grateful for. So let me share my screen, see how that goes. And I think the volume's a little quiet on the video, so feel free to turn up your volume.
Daniel Berrigan loved Kirkridge. He loved the windows and vistas, the way nature called to him to look out. He loved the quiet corners that beckoned for him to look in. He loved the joy-filled gatherings, yearly traditions, and improbable friendships that invited him to look up. He loved the long history that he was a long part of. He loved the deep regard for Scripture that compelled him to look back. Daniel Berrigan was loved at Kirkridge, loved on this mountain. He was fed and embraced, inspired and healed. He was at home here. In Dan's name, the Kirkridge board wants to restore and update Folly, making it more energy efficient and welcoming with a new bathroom, flooring, windows, and furniture. With so many of the places Dan found home now being gone, we hope to have this space honor Dan's history and be a place where Dan's poetic and prophetic voice can continue to prod us today.
And I'll show you a brief video too of what the space looks like now, because we were able to do that work thanks to many of you on this call. So you can find in the chat a little bit more about the program, and if you know folks who need a place to rest, we really encourage people to do that. And if you want to support that, we're really grateful for that too. We launched the Berrigan Folly program over the summer, and since then we've had 9 people reach out asking for respite. 3 of them have come for our scheduled. And I just want to sort of name in that there are a lot of times that we give places here at Kirkridge for folks to come and stay for free. And sometimes that is as a scholarship, sometimes a private retreat, and sometimes it's for groups who need space. And that really deeply feels like an ethic of ours, an ethic to say yes, to see this place with abundance, to know that access is a justice issue, and to trust that we're going to figure out how to make that work. Because it does cost money, cost staff money and energy and building ware to offer hospitality. But we do it, and we trust, as Kirkridge has always been, the ways that community keeps this place running. And we're really grateful for that. I want to share another video. Margaret Ernst, one of our board members, was hoping to be with us, but she is in flight right now to the West Bank to join other members of Christians for a Free Palestine who are joining the Kairos conference in Bethlehem. And so we're also holding her and all of those who are gathering, but she sent in this video to say a little bit about CFP and the work here at Kirkridge.
Hi friends, this is Margaret Ernst, and I am bummed that I cannot be with you tonight, but I am actually in Palestine at this moment, and so I'm recording this video for you a few days before I leave, while I'm still in the States, and sending it along with my warm love and gratitude to Kirkridge especially. So we're gathering tonight to celebrate Kirkridge and to love on Kirkridge and to resource Kirkridge. I want to tell you a little bit about how Kirkridge has become a really pivotal partner with Christians for a Free Palestine in this past year. So the relationship between Kirkridge and Christians for a Free Palestine began at the very beginning of CFP. We, CFP, Christians for a Free Palestine, did our very, very first leadership team gathering at Kirkridge in 2024, and that was a critical time with Kirkridge providing physical space and also facilitation support to our team to figure out what we are doing in building a movement of mobilizing Christians in solidarity with Palestine against the genocide in Gaza. After that, we continued partnership in many ways. The Kirkridge Intentional Community did a solidarity circle and participated in ceasefire actions in East Stroudsburg and beyond. And in May of this past year, 2025, for the amazing Festival of Radical Discipleship, Kirkridge again was a critical partner. We thought that it would be, we as Christians for a Free Palestine thought that we would bring our leaders, our volunteer leaders, to Kirkridge for the festival to get the energy from the festival, the inspiration, the critical analysis, and really just like a wind beneath our wings for the spring and the summertime. And also to stay some extra days to gather with core leaders in our network, people that we want to engage and deepen in their leadership and their organizing. And we did an essential planning for the Interfaith Action for Palestine, our second annual disruption of Christian Zionism in DC. So we planned the action there. We dreamt up how we would create a powerful counter witness to Christians United for Israel as an interfaith coalition consisting of Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and everybody you can imagine. And we did that action in the summertime, and without Kirkridge, it would not have been possible. Kirkridge has continued to provide space for refuge and care and sort of thought leadership in our work. And our really exciting new initiative that we're deeply partnering with Kirkridge on is called Picket and Pray, which, if you know Kirkridge history, you know that Picket and Pray came from Kirkridge. That idea, the intentional community that John Oliver Nelson started Kirkridge with, this idea that we must protest, we must organize and build movement and build people power, and we also must pray. We must have spiritual practices, and it's essential that we do both hand in hand. So, inspired by that idea, Christians for a Free Palestine, alongside Kirkridge and Mennonite Action, have come together for a weekly action call, which centers spiritual practice in the Christian tradition alongside action for Palestine. So every single week, Wednesdays at 12 o'clock p.m., 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time, we gather. And so far, I think on the first call, there were like 400 people. And since then, we've had many, many people join us from all across the country and even the world, including from Ghana and other places across the world, to gather and to be together and to not be alone as we continue this steadfast movement for Palestine and really for all of our liberation. So thank you to Kirkridge. Please give generously tonight, share your resources, and let us celebrate in this fall festival what Kirkridge is, what it has been, and what it can be in the future.
Thanks all. Sorry, it sounds like the video may not have been working perfectly, but hopefully you at least were able to hear Margaret. I'm really excited to introduce Nicola. I just feel sort of daily abundant gratitude for the amazing team here that I get to work with, and Nicola being one of those who just is an incredible partner to have as an associate director. So I'm excited for Nicola to share a little bit about sort of what the work is and what the coming work is in these next few months.
Hey everyone, it's good to be here with you. My role tonight is, first of all, to ground us in the current moment. And to do that, I want to invite us literally to ground, because the current moment is pretty terrifying. So if you can take just a moment to notice your seat, notice your body, notice your environment, let your nervous system know that in this moment, you are not under threat. It can be helpful to look over your shoulders, just see what's in the room with you. can also be helpful to do a practice that we do here a lot, which is just to notice the earth underneath your feet. I often invite people to imagine that they can grow roots out of the bottoms of their feet and out of their tailbones, reaching down into the earth, reaching for the mycelial network that connects the roots of all the plant beings all over the planet. So touching into that larger nervous system and allowing it to hold you, even in this moment, even with all the things that we're feeling about the situation in this country right now. We do not have to carry it alone. So you don't really need me to tell you about the moment. I know you all know that a description of it reads like the most apocalyptic parts of our scriptures. There are famines and earthquakes and genocides, multiple and ongoing. Nation rises against nation, our own apparently against Venezuela in this moment, to say nothing of the quieter wars we continue to wage around the world. People are being abducted off the streets here on this land. Justice itself has been perverted, to borrow from the words of the prophet Habakkuk. The courts are stacked with, if not exactly regime loyalists, then justices with a deep commitment to a so-called conservative viewpoint that harkens back to a time when white supremacy, settler colonialism, and patriarchy were less publicly up for question. So the moment is dire and our people are suffering, full stop. In this moment, we have to be asking, how do we live now? Where do we put our bodies so that we can cog the wheels of the terror machine and slow the violence, if not stop it? How can we form communities of mutual aid so that we can survive this moment? And at the same time, we know that every crisis is an opportunity. In this moment of crumbling of the old systems, there is the opportunity for something new to emerge. Scripture tells us about apocalypse that these markers are the beginnings of the birth pangs, the advent of something new. How do we move into that newness from this place of terror? So that's the moment that we're in. I would venture to guess that everyone on this call has figured out that bringing justice is not just a matter of assembling the right facts in the right order to make other people finally see the light, though maybe we still try that at the holiday dinner table. I probably will. I think we all know that there's something deeper going on, keeping us, even those of us who long for justice, locked in patterns and structures that do not honor our integrity or anyone else's. Here are some of the questions that preoccupy me in these days. Can we face our terror of aging, disability, and vulnerability of all kinds? A terror both understandable and deadly as we lash out in self-protection and push our own vulnerability onto the shoulders of others, often those who have already been most targeted. How do we overcome our fear of one another, often forged in the vulnerability of childhood in this broken culture, so that we can reach out, ask genuine questions of one another, approach one another with curiosity rather than skepticism? How can we heal our alienation from the earth? How can I stop forgetting that the earth is alive and sentient and trying to ally with us in the struggle? How do we break our deeply ingrained habit of ranking ourselves and others in hierarchies of supremacy and inferiority, doing it automatically without thinking about it in every room we enter, at least in every room I enter, even though I don't believe in it. Where do we source our dignity, if not from supremacy? Or from being one of the good ones, the ones who actually get it, which instantly sets us up to resist feedback and calcify our positions. Part of the reason I'm at Kirkridge is that I think we need spaces to step out of the fray. Reverend Naomi invoked that at the beginning of our call. We need spaces to reflect, to be asked provocative questions, to touch into our own wisdom and the wisdom of the earth. That's how we think of this place. I want to give you just a tiny taste of that right here on the call. It would be so much better if we could be together in a circle in our bodies and feel each other in the room. But I want to invite you into a little bit of a guided meditation, if you're willing. You can do this with your video on or off, whatever's more comfortable for you. But I just invite you to, again, notice your body. Notice where you are in time and space. And allow your attention, if you can, to drop down in your body from your head down into the area around your heart. And just take a couple breaths there, noticing what it feels like to have your attention located there in your chest. And then allow it to drop even a little further into your belly, the bowl of your hips. And take a couple breaths there. Keeping your attention really rooted there in the center of your body. Just allow it to gently expand upward through your torso, spilling down your arms, up gently through your neck and your head, and down through your hips, spilling down your legs to your feet and toes, filling up all the space that is available inside your body. And then rooted in your body in that way, invite to come present to you at least one trusted power. That could be a deity with whom you have a relationship. It could be a tree, a mountain, an ancestor, one of the wise and loving ones. But something that you trust. It could be the accumulative power of love in the universe. But go ahead and call that present to you so that you feel resourced with that. And then with the help of that power, clear the space around you of any distractions, any to-do lists, anything that is nagging at you. And allow that power to establish just a gentle layer of protection all around you. So from that place rooted in your body, in the presence of a trusted power, in a clear and protected space, call present to you a wisdom council. And again, that could consist of deities, God, Jesus, the Trinity, other deities, trees, rocks, waters that you've known, ancestors, your memory of trusted teachers who have helped to shape you. Anyone you trust as a source of wisdom, and allow them to assemble in your mind's eye. And take a moment to listen. You've heard a lot shared here tonight. What are the things that are particularly alive for you from what you've heard? What would your wisdom council like to share with you about the things that you've heard? Stay with that. If it's generative, I'll ask a couple specific questions, but feel free to ignore those if what's happening is good for you. How is the fear of vulnerability showing up in your life? What would it mean for you to come into right relationship with vulnerability? To assume your rightful part of it so that it doesn't have to be carried by others. How is fear in the way of right relationship for you right now? If it is. What can you do to cultivate right relationship with the earth? How is the other than human world trying to partner with you and your people in this movement moment? What is the real source of your dignity? And how can you stay connected with that source? Take a moment to just listen to any last wisdom that wants to come through. And then thank those who've gathered with you in this meditation. Notice that the space around you is still clear and protected. Your trusted power that you called in is still present. And notice your body. Taking your time as you begin to come back to this Zoom room. If we were on retreat together, we would have a moment now to share. If there are things that feel like they are for the group and not just for you. Unfortunately, we are not on retreat together, but if you would like to put anything in the chat that came up for you in that meditation, we would all, I know, love to hear about it. And also no pressure if it felt like it was just for you. So I'm going to transition now into some of what is coming up in the coming year, some of the exciting things that we have planned. You won't find most of these on our website just yet. We're finishing up the final details, so you really are the first to know. I want to start with a couple of online things. There will be an ongoing white anti-racist practice group that meets for 6-week series in 2026. This is not a diversity training. My dear friend, Reverend Lenice Pinkard, used to say all the time that diversity trainings ruin perfectly good people by trying to teach people how to say the right thing, use the right words, appear to be anti-racist. This is not that. But instead, we focus on how to reckon with the deeper things that keep us from taking anti-racist action. Our fears of making mistakes, of doing harm, of being humiliated, of being cast out of belonging. Those are the things that we're reckoning with in the White Anti-Racist Practice Group. And if you fall into that category, we would welcome you to be a part of that. The next group is starting January 15th, I believe, or 14th. We are also shifting our book group to a new topic. So far, I'm calling it the Apocalyptic Book Group. And that is going to be a chance to read some books that might help us understand what is being revealed in this apocalyptic moment. If you would like to be on a mailing list for that book group, I'm going to put my email into the chat. Since it's not on the website and you can't sign up yet, you can send me an email and I will put you on the email list. So if you are interested in the Apocalyptic Book Group, let me know. We're also working on an online course on conflict and the body, embodied responses to conflict, and how to work with trauma responses in the body that keep us from being able to do conflict well. We know that in our justice movements, conflict often really gets in the way of doing the work. So we're going to offer something in 2026, and that will also be online. We have a bunch of public retreats coming up. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are some of the ones that are particularly oriented around justice and seeking for justice. We will have one called Damned Whiteness, led by the author of the book by that name, David Evans, on the ways that white Christian allies failed the Black freedom movement and how we can do better. So that will be coming up the end of February. Bill Wiley-Kellerman, who you heard from earlier, will be offering a retreat on Bonhoeffer and the Black Jesus with Reggie Johnson. I think I'm getting that name right. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, Bill, please. I don't know Reggie.
William.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I will be co-facilitating a retreat with Andrea Ritchie, the abolitionist attorney, agitator, on her book, Practicing New Worlds. And we'll be doing some imaginative practices toward a world where everyone can thrive, and that will be in May. We will again host the Festival of Radical Discipleship that you heard about earlier, also in May. Reverend Naomi, who you heard from earlier, will be facilitating both a public retreat and an ongoing year-long cohort called In Search of New Suns. And that will focus on the parable books by Octavia E. Butler. So Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. And we will be reading those together and sort of apprenticing ourselves to Lauren Olamina, the main character in those books, who is an incredible community organizer. We will again host Susan Raffo for With the Land, which is about how we restore right relationship with the land. We'll also be hosting some healing justice retreats, 3 trans sanctuary retreats in 2026. Reverend Lenice Pinkard will be hosting The Clearing, which is a healing retreat for Black, queer, and trans people. And that will happen in April. We will continue to host Berrigan's Folly respite program for activists, which you heard about earlier. We are also really thinking about what the skills are that we need to live into an alternative set of systems and structures. So we'll be offering some skills retreats in 2026. The first in February will be ham radio. We will also offer one on grief practices in June, and one on foraging in September. Another aspect of the work that we're focusing on in 2026 is sort of translocal organizing, which is really what we do with the Festival of Radical Discipleship, bringing people together from around this land and across movement sectors to cross-pollinate with each other. So we're hoping to host Spiritual Roots of Protest again, and a convening that we're calling Festival of Community Survival, which will be a skill sharing retreat across movement sectors. So all of that is just a tiny sampling of what is to come. Those are the things that are most explicitly around our justice making work, but in truth, our longing for justice infuses everything that we do, shaped by this long heritage that we have received of Christian peacemaking, and shaped also by Black feminism and LGBTQ liberation. And all of that really soaks into everything that we do here. And we can't do any of it without you. Lydia already talked a little bit about our ongoing attempts to balance affordability of our retreats with sustainability. I'm not sure if everyone on the call knows that our retreats do not turn a profit. They are at best sort of break-even projects, and that we survive on donations and rentals. So we really need community to continue being this place of respite, refuge, and scheming for a more just and thriving world. And with that, I think I'm turning it over to Frida.
Hi, everybody. Good to be with you this evening. And
Nicola, you're always a really hard act to follow, and tonight is no exception. I went looking for a photograph this morning and I couldn't find it, so I'll try and describe it here. There are a dozen kids perched on a large rock behind the farmhouse at Kirkridge, and each of us is smiling ear to ear and mugging for the camera. We all look like extras from one of the Harry Potter movies. You know, the wizard kids, you know, they all wear a mixture of muggle clothes and magical ones. Our clothes all came from thrift stores and donation bins and hand-me-downs. There were stripes and plaids and itchy 70s synthetics, even though it was well into the 1980s. Behind us, Phillip Berrigan beams a massive smile. It is a smile of freedom and kid delight. At the time, I thought it was odd that my father was volunteering for childcare at one of our Labor Day Atlantic Life Community retreats at Kirkridge. The grown-ups gather for life sharing, action planning, and Bible study, while we kids march through the forests, play capture the flag amid poison ivy thickets, and have apple wars, trying to elude most of the people who have been assigned to childcare. My father is usually heading up the choir practices at these retreats, convening groups of people exploring plowshares actions, not corralling kids for games that don't involve throwing apples. I heard the story more recently that someone at this retreat had the bright idea of adding a men's caucus to the agenda. Apparently, my father lasted 5 minutes in a circle of male sharing and headed for the door. I better go help with the kids, he thought. It was our gain, obviously, because he organized us into an epic game of improvisational baseball, and we had so much fun. And I'm sharing this story as I start a pitch to encourage you all to financially support Kirkridge. And I'm dedicated to finding that picture and seeing if it can be in the next issue of the newsletter. I now serve as the secretary of the board at Kirkridge, and I've done that for a couple years now. And when I wrote this, I said, it's been years since I've had poison ivy, but in fact, I have poison ivy right now. All of my memories of Kirkridge, the recent and the distant, involve a complicated emotion of safety and belonging, stretching and growing, and delight in camaraderie. And I know I'm not alone in that feeling, that complicated emotion that I have yet to find a single word for. People come from all over the country, and in fact from other countries as well, to a space that allows that feeling to bubble up in them. At Kirkridge, we can embrace raggedness, we can take exquisite care, and we can connect deeply. People are fed spiritually, emotionally, and bodily. And what happens when we're fed? We grow. We grow. I think Lacey is putting into the chat some ways in which you can support Kirkridge through this time. And I hope you'll avail yourselves of that and not be too riveted by my multi-layered presentation here. And my good friends, Amanda and Sheila, who have joined me here. Hello, I'm so glad that they're here. Amid the fearfulness and the hatred, the racism, the state-sanctioned violence, the perversion of Christianity, all the bad news coming from our empire in grasping decline, we need people to be fed, whole, spiritually strong, and connected. And Kirkridge is one of the places where that holy work happens. And it's not cheap, and it's not free. Since Lydia was hired as executive director and brought this extraordinary community of people to steward the mountain, more and more people have been able to access Kirkridge's offerings. It costs just under $2,000 a day to keep Kirkridge going. And our hope as the board and as the staff is to raise $50,000 before the end of the year
to ensure that that holy work continues. As Nicola mentioned, there's programs, there's rentals, there's grants. All of those help keep the lights on and are altogether about 3/4 of the work that the staff and the board do every day. But a full quarter of our budget comes from people who support the mission of Kirkridge, our mission of being a place of beauty and wonder, a space to wander and to rest, where the land listens and the stones speak, a place to kindle courage and stumble upon kindred spirits, a place tingling with spirit, summoning the work of justice, a place to ask, what does it mean to be human? And how do we tend to our souls? And that's all from our mission statement. As was mentioned earlier by Bill and Lydia, and actually Nicola as well, when our board last gathered, we signed this treaty of renewed friendship with the Lenape people ceremony, where we committed to a continuous collaboration to help combat the erasure of the Lenape people and their homelands, and to protect the land's wildlife and waterways of this place where Kirkridge lives. And it was not an abstract performance, right? It wasn't just our signature on a document. As was mentioned, Lenape elders from Oklahoma stayed this week in 3 buildings on Kirkridge. And it was a huge gift to play some small role in connecting these two people, this one people separated by distance, and be part of people coming home to the land. It's an embodiment of the treaty that we signed with the Lenape. But it means that we were not able to rent those buildings out this week, right? So that Lydia talked about that abundance and that spirit of welcome and invitation of bringing people in. We raised money last year to rehabilitate Folly, a standalone cottage up at Nelson, in the memory of my uncle, Father Daniel Berrigan, and to offer it free of charge to activists and change makers in need of respite and recharge. And people have, as Lydia mentioned, so taken us up on that invitation. It seems like we were offering the right thing at the right time to the right people. There's been a steady stream of people able to lay some of their burdens down on the mountain, a mountain that can hold all of it. And we're so grateful that people have taken us up on that invitation. And the money we raised to offer that retreat space is now almost depleted and in need of a refill. So we're coming to you, to all of you here on this call, to your friends, to your neighbors, to your congregations, to your affinity groups, to your families, to ask for your support and for a deepening of your commitment to Kirkridge. The staff at Kirkridge dig deep every day to make this place a home for all of us. And let us match their passion and their commitment and their wisdom with our own generosity. We're always welcome to Courage with this image of the stones speaking. And so the next time you're at Kirkridge, I hope you'll go to the rock behind the farm. I hope that you'll go to the rock behind the farmhouse and bend your ear to the cold gray lichen covered body of that rock. And I think you might be able to hear a chorus of laughter there. Low and throaty, high and delighted, the stones hold all of our stories and will always continue to do so. So thank you for gathering us together this evening, and thank you for your ongoing support of Kirkridge.
Thanks, Freedom. Hopefully those links are in the chat, and you can go ahead and click on them and donate right now, or make a commitment in the chat. We really, really, really are deeply grateful for any ways you can give, and we deeply, deeply need it. As I was thinking about tonight, I found myself thinking about a quote from Robert Raines that he said back in the mid-70s, he said, an enduring Kirkridge concern is to provide special sanctuary and encouragement to persons and groups outside the mainstream of society. Persons and groups oppressed, forgotten, scapegoated, deprived economically and socially. Kirkridge itself is an outsider institution in that it exists outside of the established church. I was thinking there might be ways that we would sort of shift some of that language and wording 50 years later. But I feel like that vision holds true, that Kirkridge's vocation is to be on the outside of institutions, to be offering sanctuary and community and rest and imagination. And I think there are so many ways that we're getting clearer and clearer about who we are and what work is ours. I've been mulling this past week over an evaluation that came through after one of our programs, and holding it and feeling it deeply. Someone wrote, "Please keep politics out of spirituality. Offer more retreats that are just spiritual." And I hear that. And what kept coming to me was that there are lots of retreat centers that offer spiritual tending. And there are not many places where the spiritual and the political are always intersectional. We take spirituality seriously, centering queer and trans folks. We take spirituality seriously, understanding the ways that it's been used as a tool in white supremacy. We take spirituality seriously, knowing the importance of tending to our spirits and souls in this time of fascism. We take spirituality seriously, mindful that so many of us are tired and need rest. We take spirituality seriously, heeding Grace Boggs' call that these are times to grow our souls. We take spirituality seriously, listening to the ways that land is always a partner in our healing. We take spirituality seriously, longing for deep hospitality and tender quiet and powerful prayer and a cultivation of beauty. And all of that is political. And we believe that that is our work. We are unapologetically rooted in a commitment to liberation. And that vision is not easy to fund. We love this work and we are committed to it. And financially, it is hard work. And we really do need your help to make it happen. And we're so grateful for all of the ways that you support Kirkridge. And I know, and I see the faces on this call, and I know that you are folks who have loved and cared and supported this place for a long time. Deep gratitude. And I'll offer this blessing as a closing, and then I'm going to ask Naomi to come back and sing us out of here. O Spirit, who dwells in the cracks and in our hands, who lives in the forests and breaks in the bread, who moves in the mycelial networks and speaks in the stones, be with us in our becoming, in our fears, in our vulnerabilities, in our discerning of these times. Be with Margaret and all of those in Palestine. Be with Edgar and all of those who are standing with their neighbors when ICE shows up. We give thanks for all those who have ever gathered on this mountain and all those who are yet to come. We give thanks for the ways that we can call on our history. May we be the antidote in this moment, to rest without ever retreating from justice. May we know courage in our bodies. May we listen for our vocations and be prepared to drop everything and go another way. May we feel the stones below us the delight in camaraderie. May we embrace raggedness and be fed. May we ask what it means to be human and grow our souls. And may we prepare ourselves to be revolutionaries. Amen.
The words are in the chat, so as you like, sing this prayer with me. Love, prepare me to be a revolutionary, tough and tender, tried and true, and with each other we'll build another world together, me and you. Let's do it one more time. And love, prepare me to be a revolutionary, tough and tender, tried and true, and with each other we'll build another world together, me and you. We can't start a movement, but we can prepare for one. Yes, indeed.
Amen. Thank you all. So good to be with each of you.